This is just some of the study material that I used for the DAT. Looking at this makes me so glad I'm done with the DAT. Hi guys, welcome back. I am going to be making this video all about the DAT and my experience and answering some of the questions that you guys had through Instagram. So DAT stands for Dental Admissions Test. It is an entrance exam that must be taken before you start dental school. I took my DAT end of August of 2019. This was the end of my junior year summer term. And then I applied summer of senior year. So I used 3 different study programs. First one being DAT BOOTCAMP, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Second one being DAT Destroyer. And the third one being SWARTWOOD, which is an in-person program. The top 2 programs that really helped me were the DAT BOOTCAMP and SWARTWOOD. So DAT BOOTCAMP is an online service where you sign up. I think it's about $300 for the main package, and then it goes up from there depending on what package you decide to take. So that is something I really recommend you guys do because it is very similar to the actual DAT. The questions are similar. The timing of everything that is timed is very similar. The things that are on the DAT BOOTCAMP website is never a waste of your time. Everything that is on DAT BOOTCAMP is very relevant. There's no excess information on DAT BOOTCAMP. I think that if you really focus on DAT BOOTCAMP questions and practice exams, you'll do fairly well. DAT Destroyer was another thing that I used. These are mainly books that come to you through the mail, and you go through all the questions. They're basically all just practice questions. So there's like over 150 questions per section. I personally didn't find DAT Destroyer to be the most helpful tool. I just decided to try it out, and it was great backup for extra questions that I wanted to practice on. But honestly, the questions that were on DAT Destroyer were a little too complicated, and the questions were much harder than the actual DAT questions. And the thought process of that is that if you can answer the harder questions, you can answer the easier questions. I personally got stressed out for not being able to answer harder questions, and I think that it made me feel like I was not prepared because I would miss more of the DAT Destroyer questions than I would for DAT BOOTCAMP questions. The third program that I used to study for the DAT was SWARTWOOD. This is an in-person program. I just personally study better and learn better in person when there's somebody at the front, like a classroom type setting, that's teaching me and showing me what I need to know exactly. And in real time, I can ask my questions that I have and get it answered and just learn in that classroom type setting. So I personally decided to do SWARTWOOD for that. It's not really necessary that you do an in-person class. I just know that I learn better that way. So if you're somebody like me who learns better in a classroom type setting, I would definitely recommend SWARTWOOD. So before I go ahead and answer your questions that you guys had over Instagram, I'm going to give you guys the scores that I had. Here we go. My academic average was a 20. My biology was a 21. My general chemistry was a 20. My organic chemistry was a 20. My reading comprehension was a 19. My quantitative reasoning, which is math, was 19. And my PAT was a 16. I know. Insane. I honestly don't know how. Wait, I do know how this happened, and I'll tell you the story. But there's no excuses. So, how did I get a 16 on my PAT? It's not that I didn't study. Okay, I studied a lot. I got a 16 on my PAT because I did not pay attention to time. So for the PAT section, you're answering 90 questions in 60 minutes, okay? The number one, or one of the biggest rules for PAT is you cannot think. You do not have time to think. You do not have time to second guess yourself. You do not have time to go back and like really look at something. So don't second guess yourself. Don't overthink things like I did, because when I got to the PAT section, I started to second guess myself. I started to spend way longer time than I did when I was studying to answer the questions. Basically what happened was I looked up at the time, at the clock, I think it was at the top right or bottom right. I looked at the time I had left for the PAT, and I had like, I don't even know, like 2 minutes or 3 minutes left. I was halfway through one of the sections and I still had the whole section of angle ranking to do. Literally, if I didn't just start guessing and going next, I would not finish the PAT section. So that's what I did. I had to put in an answer. I couldn't just leave it blank, because maybe I'll get some questions right just guessing. But the problem was they weren't educated guesses, because I didn't have time to look at the angles. So I just clicked something and click next, click something and click next, click something and click next, click. Like, honestly, this is literally what I did, just so I can finish all the sections and not have just blank, answers. And that, my friends, is how you get a 16 on your PAT section. Don't do what I did. I was sweating, I was upset, I was about to cry. There was actually someone in the testing center that was crying while I was taking my exam, and I could hear their sobs through 2 ear coverings. Like, I had an ear plug and I had the little like ear, what do you call it? Headphone thing that like is supposed to be noise canceling, but it's not really noise canceling. So side note, I suggest you take your own earplugs as well. Anyways, I just got really sidetracked with that, but yeah, no excuses. I should have just not second guessed myself. I should have just paid attention more to the time, but I just don't know what happened to me in that moment. I was like, I need to make sure I get the answers right, and I just spent way too much time looking at these images and looking at these, angles and everything like that, to the point where I didn't have any time to do anything anymore. So yeah, that's one thing I am very ashamed of. I immediately started emailing all the schools that I wanted to apply to, asking if the PAT section is looked at the same or regarded more highly or regarded less highly than the other sections, because I know the PAT is a little tricky section with schools. Some schools really think it's very important, but I know that there are schools that look at it equally and look at it holistically. My PAT score is something I am not happy with, and I don't mind talking about it now because I'm in dental school now. Well, I will be in August, but yeah, you win some, you lose some, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer some of the questions that you guys had through Instagram that you guys left. First question, what helped you the most while studying besides the DAT bootcamp and DAT destroyer? Like, did you do flashcards or watch videos? I did not do flashcards. I never have done flashcards. I never benefited from flashcards. I do not understand how people study with flashcards. I'm sorry, I'm not a flashcard type girl, but besides using bootcamp and destroyer and going to SWARTWOOD classes, I basically took notes in a notebook the old-fashioned way. I just made bullet point notes on things that were very important, or the things that were kind of like definitions, or problems, like quantitative reasoning problems that I kept messing up on, I would write them down and just keep going back to them and reading through my notes like that. But usually it was mainly all through the Destroyer book or my notes in class through SWARTWOOD. So for SWARTWOOD, I would just take notes while he was lecturing. So those were my notes. Those were like basic lecture notes. DAT Destroyer, I would just honestly answer straight on the book. I wouldn't take any notes because they were just all questions, and I would circle the questions that I was having trouble with, and I would go back and look through them again. I did watch videos also, a bunch of videos on DAT Bootcamp. There's also quantitative reasoning videos for the Destroyer, which you will be linked to. So I watched those, and if I didn't understand a concept or I forgot a concept or I wanted to review a concept in depth, I would just go on YouTube and search, I don't know, enzymatic reaction, whatever, I don't know, something like that. I forgot everything honestly, I don't think I would pass the DAT now if I took it. Maybe I would. You know, I kind of want to take the DAT now to like see if I'm still competent. Okay, second question. How long did you study per day, and in total, how many days before you took it? So per day, I would study almost every day, maybe have like one day off. But I would study every day around 8 hours, depending on my day. I was doing research while I was studying, but I'd only go to research for a day and a half. So on those days I studied, I had to stay up and study, like I had to compensate for not studying throughout the day. But basically, my basic answer is I would study about 8 hours per day, and I made sure that I kind of kept it like that, and I kind of had to keep it like that because I was also following the DAT bootcamp schedule to a certain point, so I wanted to make sure I did everything that I had to per day. I basically studied for 3 whole months before I took my DAT, so I started in June and I ended in August. I had no summer. That 2019 summer was hell. No fun for me. So the third question is, what was the most challenging subject? What do you think? For me, it was the PAT, just because my brain doesn't fold in the way that it should. I don't know, the PAT is just something you can't really study for. It's like you either see it or you don't, and you just have to keep doing practice problems to the point where your brain kind of like fries and like molds to a certain different way of thinking. But it's mainly just training your eyes to see things. So it was just, I don't know, it was just kind of hard for me. PAT was just something that was difficult. I didn't mind the quantitative reasoning. I actually loved the quantitative reasoning. I loved the biology too. And OChem was okay. Gen Chem was a little tricky because I hadn't done Gen Chem for such a long time, so I forgot a lot of things. But I ended up doing okay on that. So yeah, PAT, just not my thing. Just grab it and throw it away. I don't like PAT. Next question is, anything you regret not doing, or what are you glad you did? I don't regret doing anything or not doing anything. I think I did everything that I could do, like physically, mentally, emotionally. I was truly invested in studying for this exam, and I don't think I could have done better than I did. I mean, I might have been able to, but in the moment, in that time period, I think I did everything that I could, and I think I scored the best that I could in that moment. So I don't regret anything, and I'm glad that I spent enough time studying, and I'm glad that I, sacrificed the summer to really focus and study and take it once and be done with it. I'm glad that I took the programs that I did to study. So another question was, how did you arrange your study schedule, specific subjects on certain days, for example, or different? So my study schedule was focused kind of sort of on DAT bootcamp schedule. So when you sign up for DAT bootcamp, they give you a set schedule that'll take you through, I think, close to 9 weeks or 10 weeks of studying. I followed that schedule up to the point where it started to do self exams. So you would start taking more exams and less like studying, if that makes any sense. That was really helpful. I know a lot of people complain about the DAT bootcamp schedule, but I didn't see anything wrong with it. I think it was a pretty decent schedule. And I think that if you keep up with that to a certain point, of course you can tweak it and everything, but I think that if you kind of focus on that schedule, you'll do pretty well. So I didn't focus like biology one day, chemistry another day, reading comp another day. I kind of hit all the subjects in each day. So I kind of did a little bit of each subject every single day. I didn't really like solely focus on biology one day and solely focus on OChem on another day. I think you're gonna fall behind if you do that, but at least try to do like 3 or 4 of the subjects each day if you don't want to do all of them. And then focus on the subjects that you're lacking on, because it's really easy to study the things that you're good at and the things that you understand, but it's hard to push yourself and like focus on the things that you don't understand. So that would be my tip with the subject studyings. So I kind of got a similar question. It says, how did you take time out of your day to study for it? What was your routine? I kind of canceled everything that I had going on. I stopped volunteering. I stopped, what else did I stop? I stopped going to research every single day. I only gave my specific, hours that I would be able to come in. I stopped any extracurriculars that I was doing. I stopped so much. I kind of like put a break on everything, and I was like, everything has to stop. I need to focus. And, I did it during a time that I didn't take classes. So that summer I was completely free. It was really helpful. I know some people study for class and also study for the DAT. I don't know how you guys do it. You guys are amazing. So another question was, how long did you study for the DAT? I already answered that, 3 months. What was your method of getting efficient studying done without dozing off? I actually had a few things that helped me to not go off topic or just start like not doing anything. One of them was switching up where I studied. So some days I'll study in my room, but then that gets boring and you just kind of like can't focus anymore in that space. So then I'd go to Starbucks and study there some days. Some days I'd study in my backyard. Some days I'd study with a friend. Sometimes I'd switch to different coffee shops. Sometimes I'd use the library. So basically I just switch up my study areas. I thought that really, really helped, because if you stay in one place for like the entire 3 months, you're just not gonna be able to focus in the way that you do in another area. Don't make like one specific study space and stick to that for the rest, like for 3 months or whatever, however long you're gonna be studying. Kind of switch up your study place. Also, something that helped me was I took a bunch of time lapses of me studying, and that honestly helped me not touch my phone, because I know like the phone is such a big distraction for so many people, including myself. So I was like, I need to do something where I'm not touching my phone and I can't touch my phone. So I would just kind of like prop my phone up like somewhere really high, and I'd turn on the time lapse and I just let it go. And I just didn't touch my phone when I had it on time lapse. So, and then afterwards it's kind of satisfying to watch like the time. If you capture a clock, like it just goes like this and like the time just goes crazy, and it's pretty cool. I don't know, it's just satisfying to watch back. So I just never touched my phone. I just put time lapse. I'm like, I'm not touching my phone. So those are my 2 tips. Drink a lot of coffee. That's about it. So someone said how to start. You just kind of have to pick up your, study materials, whether it's you know, signing on to DAT bootcamp or enrolling in a class or getting the Destroyer books or any other, I don't know, Kaplan or whatever type of program that you chose to use, and open the first page and look at it and then decide what you're doing that day, and then you just keep going. Keep turning the pages until you're done, and the next day is your exam day, and then you take your exam, and then your life changes. I just went really deep with that. You just kind of have to choose something and start, and just have a schedule per day. Start making a schedule and don't let yourself get distracted, and just really start focusing, and every day just wake up knowing that you have to study and just keep going. Just have to commit. So yeah, the rest of the questions were basically the same as the ones that I've answered. So I will say goodbye here. If you have any other questions regarding the DAT, feel free to comment below and I will definitely answer them for you. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.